This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to all your latest Rangers news. We're going to look ahead to possible exciting young prospect coming up through the system. Someone who played in the bounce game against Motherwell the other week and greatly impressed not only the B team and under 18s coaching staff, but also manager Philippe Clement as well. We'll look at him. We'll also look, obviously, at this need to create a pathway between first team and a youth team that players coming out of the youth academy can actually progress to play for the first team. And we'll look at the Rangers squad strength as it stands on the 19th of September as we approach the rest of this calendar year with the squad that we currently have. You know, with the news yesterday that after the breakdown of the move for Davy Klaassen, there will be no further moves by the club to sign any free agents. There will be no players arriving. This is it. What we've got now is what we have to go with up until January when the transfer window reopens and the silly season starts all over again. Well, let's start off with the name and that young promising player, which some of you may obviously know. Those of you who pay attention to the under 16s, under 18s, and the academy and the B team will know this name. But this is the young lad in mention. I don't know, whatever. Aiden McAllan. Now, Aiden McAllan signed his first professional contract for Rangers in June. Committing on the dotted line. He's 16 years old. Yes, that's right, only 16 years old, but he's already been promoted up and has played several games for the under 18s, including in the cup against Fraserburgh the other day. He was part of that team and part of that squad. In addition to that, he was actually used in that bounce game with the first team against Motherwell behind closed doors, the game that Oscar Cortez played in. McAllan actually played 20 minutes of the game and by all accounts was exceptionally impressive. Manager Philippe Clement came away from that game very, very impressed with the words that I read about this young man, which is certainly exciting news. You know, if this is a player that is already impressing the manager. Now, I'm not saying for a minute that he will be in the first team reckoning, that he will become part of the first team squad, or that any of that will happen. I mean, that's just utterly ludicrous and it's not going to happen. But it is, you know, promising that already this is a young man who is impressing, a young man who is already sort of showing himself to be a real quality one for the future. I guess the big test will be hanging on to him. You know, if he is as good as people are saying he is, then there's obviously that opportunity, that chance that, you know, those teams south of the border will start looking at him as often happens. But, you know, he's a midfield player, you know, plays as 6, can play as an 8. Quality player, great use of the ball, already represented Scotland at the under 16 levels, got 7 Scotland under 16 caps. You know, is a very, very highly rated prospect coming through the academy. So certainly a name to look out for in the future. McAllan, let's hope that if he does become part of the first team and you still have to pay per letter, that's going to cost you a lot of money to get that name on the back of your shirt, isn't it? But certainly a positive, a massive positive that this young player has been identified already by Philippe Clement as someone who has a big future at the club. However, it does, of course, beg the question is when will these young players get their opportunities? I think there's a lot of us are, you know, desperate to see some of these young lads get on and get the opportunity. Now, one of the things that's always leveled at not using these kids is, you know, Rangers very rarely get 3, 4, 5 up or 3-0 up, 4-0 up, whatever, and get an opportunity to throw the kids on. I mean, certainly there was a massive, massive wasted opportunity against Ross County. I think we were 3 or 4 up at the time. And rather than bringing on Bailey Rice, the manager brings on Kieran Dow, which I thought was a ridiculous move. You know, I'd far rather see Bailey, see what he's got, see if he can cope at this level and get him out there. You know, Bailey Rice, it has long been sort of identified as being a very hot prospect coming out of the academy and a very top player. So, you know, why are we not seeing him? Cole McKinnon, likewise. Paul Uncio is another one coming through. Archie Stevens, Finley Curtis. These are all young lads. Zach Lovelace. You know, the only player who's kind of made that breakthrough to some extent is Ross McCausland, who gets regular first team minutes. Although I know a lot of fans don't rate Ross and don't think that he is a Rangers player. They think he can be a professional player, but perhaps not at Rangers. So look, I mean, that's obviously that. I think that's slightly unfair. I think Ross is a good player. I don't think he's a great player. I don't think he's an outstanding player. I don't think he's going to be anyone that particularly pulls up trees, but he's certainly a good, solid player for the club. You know, there's certainly others that would be far more exciting options. You know, like I said, likes of Bailey Rice, Cole McKinnon, Zach Lovelace, Finley Curtis, for example. And I think for me, the more opportunities these guys get to be on the bench and actually get on to the park. I mean, Robbie Fraser's had a part of an opportunity. Robbie's a top player. Really, I've been a massive fan of Robbie Fraser's, really pushed his case. And the more we can use these players, the more we can show that progression. And I think, the other thing is this is a twofold situation when it comes to these young players. Situation one is that, we get to see whether these players are actually up to the task, whether they're actually up to being Rangers players. You will never be able to tell whether they are able to cut it at first team level until they get an opportunity. Now, I'm not saying, as I've said on numerous occasions, start them. What I am saying is, get them on for 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Surely, if they can't cope, against the likes of Ross County, St Johnstone, Hibernian, and some of the lesser teams in Scotland, then obviously we're going to see them as not being Rangers players. But if they are potential Rangers players, potential first team starters of the future, they'll be more than good enough to cope against the likes of St Johnstone, Ross County, Hibernian, Dundee, etc., etc. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think, as well is we've also got to show these players that come to the academy, and if we are going to continue to recruit and retain academy players in the future, you want to show them that there is a pathway there. I think, one of the situations that, say, Manchester City have done well over recent years, Liverpool as well, with the likes of Elliott and Conor Bradley and Ben Doak, for example, there, and the Arsenal players that have come through the academy there, and Manchester City players, and to some extent as well, Manchester United as well, is that they have a pathway there. There is a clearly demonstrated pathway that they can get into the first team. There is a chance for them to actually play first team football. And, that's a big selling point for a young player. If you can show a young player that, yes, it is well worth staying with his academy, yes, it is well worth persisting with being in part of this youth setup at the club, because there is a clear vision there that you can make the first team. If you continually shut off that pathway and don't show that there is a progression from youth team to B team to first team, then you are going to get players and youngsters picking other academies, picking other clubs to go to, not necessarily with anything against Rangers in terms of the size of the club or the history of the club, but just genuinely because they can't get first team football and they don't see that as an opportunity. You'll also start to lose more of the players south of the border as well. Players will look at options that come in and offers that come in from the likes of Arsenal, Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, etc., and see them as very favourable opportunities, and then more willing to go down south rather than obviously stay here in Scotland, which is obviously something that we need to make sure that we do retain these players and we retain Scottish talent within the Scottish League for the good of Rangers and for the good of Scottish football. Right, so that's a little bit on that. Aiden McAllan, like I said, look out for that. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your feelings on that. So there's a little graphic I put together now with the squad depth as it stands today. So you're looking at that squad, you're looking at those squad areas, you're looking at those players. Look, probable starting 11, I would say, if everybody's fit, is Butland in goal. Tav is going to look. We all have our thoughts, our feelings on James Tavernier. He is someone who is greatly dividing the fan base at this moment in time. Personal opinion, don't think he should be anywhere near the first team. Personal opinion, he should be either be in the B team or just not playing at all. But he is going to play. The manager is going to continue to pick him no matter how badly he plays. So we've just kind of got to forget that one. Suter and Proper will be the central defensive pairing going forward. They do seem to be Clement's favourite pairing. Kiefte at left back. Barron and Dio are definitely his favourite in front of the back four. Cheney, Bairami, Cortez behind Dessers, I think, is the way forward. Although I do think that Bairami may appear on the left, interchanging with Cortez, with Tom Lawrence getting a role there, as the manager does seem to really like Tom Lawrence, perhaps even favouring him ahead of Bairami, which I think it would be a massive, massive mistake. And I certainly don't want to see Bairami shoved out on the left all the time. I know he can play left wing, but his better position is 10. Right, so personally, this is what I would pick. This is my 11. My 11 is Butland, Sterling, because he's a better right back than Tav. Balogun over Suter. I like Big Leon. I think Big Leon is far more reliable, far more solid. He's quicker. He's a leader, a communicator. He's a top man, Liam Balogun. Proper, Kiefte, Baron, Dio, Cheney, Bairami, Cortez. And I would put Hamza up front. I just think, yes, we've only seen a limited sample size and he is a young player, but technically, skill-wise, ability-wise, he's head and shoulders above Dessers. You just got to look at, you can, as a coach and as someone who's, coached young players and coached through the age levels, you look at a player and you can tell whether a player is going to be a success. You can tell whether a player's got something special when you watch them through their touch, their movement, the way they bring others into the game, the way they read the game, the way they carry the ball, the way they carry themselves. And I'll tell you this, watching Hamza and then going back and watching, that 16 minutes against Celtic, and then the 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it was that he was on against, at the weekend, obviously, against, who were we playing again? I've forgotten who we were playing again. In that game, that's dreadful, isn't it? Against Dundee United, sorry, yes. Watching that game again and watching him and really focusing on him, he has got it. He has got it. He's got a touch. He's got a technical ability. He is a lot better player than Cyril Dessers, and I think we'll hopefully go on to be our first choice striker, as the season progresses. But we look at those position groups, and there's still what I would describe as a lot of dead wood in there. A lot of players that need to be shipped out. A lot of players that I think are not Rangers players, that are not good enough to play for the club and do need to be moved on at some point. Chief amongst them, obviously, James Tavernier. But, the depth chart, we look at these depth charts, it's a very American sport thing to do, is to look at depth charts and positional strength and, what's the depth behind the starting guy, as they all say in America. But, goalkeeper-wise, Butland, Kelly, Budanakis and Munn, I think, goalkeeper-wise, we are quite well provided for. I mean, I know Butland's had his dodgy moments, his dodgy spells, but overall he's a decent keeper. Liam Kelly's a decent backup. Budanakis has been part of the Scotland '21 setup. Looks a decent goalkeeper. Although with that name, I actually thought he actually sounds more Latvian or Lithuanian or from the Baltic countries. Mason Munn, we know, is a very good young keeper. Certainly was the interested likes of Arsenal and Liverpool, apparently. The back four is still a worry for me. I still think that we need a centre-back. I still think we need a right-back, particularly if Sterling isn't going to be the right-back of the future, that if he's going to be more used in a CDM role or a wing role. And I think, with this depth chart, there is a fluidity to this depth chart. Casanwejo can play right-back, he can play centre-back. Sterling can play CDM, or he can play winger. Dow can play there, or he can play in the 10. There is a fluidity to this. I know that, I get that. But this is kind of just laying people in their strongest positions. Central defensive wise, Suter, Casanwejo and King, Proper, Balogun and Ciala. I still think we're two centre backs away from real dominant quality centre backs. You look at them across the city. Yes, they've got Scales, who's a very average player, but Kartos Vickers is a quality player. And we do, I think, need two dominating centre halves to really take them on. Proper looks a good player, but not a great player, not a top player. I don't think. I still think he's got a few weaknesses in his game. Some of that might be settling time. He's still obviously very young into his Scottish career. Yes, he is old, but you know what I mean. So I still feel that in that centre half area, whilst we perhaps got enough to get through this season, at this moment in time with Suter, Casanwejo, King, Balogun, Ciala and Proper, although I don't think we'll see Ciala at any point this season, which I think is particular, which I don't think is great. I do think that he was probably sold the move on playing first team football, yet isn't going to get first team football. He's probably sitting there thinking, why did I leave Milan? I'd like to see him given a go in some games, cup games against the lesser lights. Certainly, give him a go. I think the left back area is very well provided for. Hjefte, Rydvan, and Fraser. I think whoever you put in out of those three, you get an equally strong outcome. Hjefte, I think, just edges the starting role at the moment. He's been, done really, really well past games. Good going forward. His defensive skills have improved. He's obviously one downside is his penchant for picking up a booking. Rydvan, Rydvan's obviously got his weakness of his injuries. Robbie Fraser, I like Robbie. I do think Robbie should get more of a go. In terms of the midfield pairing, I mean, Barron, Raskin and Dio, you're strong there. McKinnon, we don't know. Rice, we don't know. I'd like to see them given more of a go. I'd certainly like to see McKinnon and Rice getting opportunities ahead of Kieran Dowell, for example. Dowell's an average player. He's not a great player. He's not a bad player. He's not a good player. He's just a very average player. I do think that Rice would offer more than him, that McKinnon would offer more than him, that Raskin will offer more than him. So, these are people that I want to see used, in rotation with Barron and Diamande. Barron, for me, out of those six, in that role has been by far the outstanding player. He's been one of the best players in Scotland this season already. Energy, tackles, always wants the ball, distributes well, gets stuck in, leads well. Just a top player. I'd like to see him and Raskin actually given a go. Dio's form has not been great of late. So I'd actually like to see him and Raskin given a go there. I think Raskin's got the legs, the ability to get on, to push forward. He's a little bit more energetic, a little bit more physical than Dio. Maybe that's an option going forward. Wing-wise, I still think we are very, very weak in the wing areas. Tierney, he's a bit of a one-trick pony. McCausland's okay. Cortez looks a player. Matondo doesn't look a player. I think, out of those four wingers, Cortez is probably the only one who you'd say, yes, out and out, top quality, can go on to be a real star. I genuinely think, obviously, Tierney's on loan, may not be here next season. McCausland, like I said, he's a solid player, but he's not a player that's going to get you off your seat, who's going to win your trophies. It's just not with Ross. I love Ross, don't get me wrong. I like his effort. I like his work rate. I like his ethics. I like the way he tries. But, if you're going for a Rangers team that's going to go on to be successful at home and in Europe, you need just a little bit more quality there. So for me, I think we're really lacking on the right side. I think we're really lacking in the wing areas. Like I said, only 1 out of 4 for me really jumps off the page there. The 10 role, I think, again, we do need someone to back up Bayrami. I think Lawrence is done. I think it's time he moved on. Lowry, we know, is not fancied by the manager. He is likely to be gone in January or gone at the season's end or as soon as his contract comes to an end. Bayrami, is the future. Hopefully, he's going to be a player that comes in and is a success. He's put in some nice touches the other day. He's going to take more time to settle in. Hopefully, this week we've kind of had off with no European football ahead of the Dundee game. He'll get that chance to train with his teammates, to build that understanding, to get over this not knowing his teammates' names, which is a ridiculous reason for not playing someone. But there we go. But he's a real hope. The forward line gives me the fear. I still think that we need a quality striker, a top class number 9. I think Hamza can be a decent forward going, I think that's right, but you do need something else, another option. Dessers for me is consistently inconsistent. While he can do it against the likes of St Johnstone, the likes of Ross County, when it comes to games that really matter, games like against Celtic, I had this argument with a Rangers fan the other day. He's got 2 assists and a goal against Celtic. Yeah, but what have we won? Nothing. Did any of those goals actually matter? No. When he actually had the chance to score a goal that's made a difference in a game, he's blown it. And that first one at Parkhead the other week, the last season, when he takes 25 million touches, and he should be taking only 2, possibly 3. The other day, yes, I know he was offside, but again, 2 chances. Well, 1 offside, 1 not offside. And he passes it back to Schmeichel. No challenge there at all. PSV away. Again, through on the keeper, doesn't even work the keeper. Benfica at home, when we need a striker, a leader to score goals for us, he's nowhere to be seen. The game against Dinamo Kiev at Hampden, absolutely dreadful performance. Dessers is average. He's a backup striker. Anyone who thinks he's a starting number 9 needs to give their head a wobble. They really do. Danilo gives me the fear. He's with his injuries. He's just constantly injured, and it's a worry. Real concern that he's never really going to be the player that perhaps we hoped he would be due to these injuries. Lovelace, I think, could be a player, but will he get the chance? That's the big question. So I do think we're really lacking in the 9 area still. So I do think, striker-wise, winger-wise, centre-back-wise, we are really lacking. They're kind of the 3 positions I would want. I mean, yes, there are more positions that need to be addressed. Don't get me wrong in this squad. But in terms of January, I do actually think that there are those 3 key positions of centre forward, winger, and centre back that do need to be addressed come January. Look, guys, that's where we're up to at the moment. That's the squad as it stands. Realistically, is that squad good enough to compete this season? It should be. It should be good enough to get, to be challenging for trophies, for cups, and probably finishing second. Is it a squad that's going to win the league? Probably not. Probably lacks a bit of quality in different places. Lacks a bit of extra bite, a little bit of extra talent that they've got across the city that we don't have. I think that first Old Firm game showed that, didn't it? I think at the end of the day, it is what it is. We have to run with this now till January. We have to hope that in January that Philippe Clement and Niels Koppen work their magic and can bring in some players that will help us to make that next step. Now, we are, of course, fast approaching October, November, when Clement told us we'd see the best of Rangers. So let's see what they have to deliver. Now, obviously, it starts this weekend. Dundee in the Cup, back at Ibrox. Thank God we are back at Ibrox. Guys, let me know your thoughts, your comments, etc., etc. Right, just a quick explanation to finish off with. New logo for the channel. The reason being is that because we want to start looking into producing merchandise. We want to start using getting sponsors involved. We've obviously got to then use images and lettering and different things that do not carry any threat of copyright. So the previous images we've used have been borrowed from the internet, from Google, etc., the lions, all that. So there's obviously that worry of copyright strikes, copyright threats, being sued for copyright breach, etc., etc. Whereas these images are copyright free. So hopefully you like them. Hopefully you like the images. We are working on something. I've been working on a Glasgow Rangers Nation mug that's in the offing, which I'll hopefully be getting out later this year. So perhaps for Christmas, if you fancy a Glasgow Rangers Nation mug, let me know. And then we'll look at t-shirts, hoodies, etc. next year, going into the new year. Guys, let me know what you think of the ideas of the logo. Thanks for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. Please obviously smash that like. Please obviously drop a comment, sub to the channel. And remember always, we are the people.